an official welcome to everyone, to our three guests today, and anyone who's watching the recording of this drop-in discussion, which is part of the Europe Leaders Learning Community. So I hope that you're familiar by now with the EuropeLLC.eu website. There's lots of wonderful resources on there. And every month we take a different theme and we talk about it. So this month's theme is the theme of entrepreneurship and thinking outside the box, which is a great thing to be talking about and very much part of our YWAM DNA. And I've got three wonderful people who've joined me to have a chat about some of the material and some of our thoughts and opinions about thinking outside the box. That is Lucy, who is in England, Andrew is in Ukraine, and Florine is in Romania. And I'm going to give each one of you, welcome, all three of you. It's great to have this time with you. I'm just going to give each of you an opportunity to say a little bit about yourselves, where you are and what you're doing. So, Lucy, why don't we start with you?
Hi. Yeah, so my name's Lucy. I've been working with YWAM since 2001. I met Miranda when I was living and working in South Africa.
Many moons ago,
and have served in various places between then and now. And I'm currently based on the far east coast of England. I can see, on a good day, I can see France from the end of my road, which is a wonderful encouragement in these times when you can't leave your country. It's nice to at least see it in the distance.
Wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hope.
Yeah.
So I'm here, I moved here a couple of years ago, and I'm here to pioneer a YWAM team, looking to the arts and mercy ministry. Really, those are the two main focuses that we would have with our team.
Great.
And I work with sort of the broader YWAM England, and I'm under the kind of the cover of Homestead Manor, which is one of our legacy.
Yeah, many of us will be familiar with Homestead. Andrew, how about you? You probably have snow outside your window.
We do. We got some nice snow out there. It's about, it's not too cold today. It's probably about -10 today. So the last few days, it's been like around -18, 19, around there. So it's warmed up a little bit today. It's meant to go above 0 tomorrow, so we'll have a nice melt off for the next few days. But I've been in Ukraine for 21 years. I started out in the capital, Kiev. I was there for 10 years. And then my wife and I moved to the city of Vinnytsia to pioneer a new team, new base, new location. We came down here with a focus on outreach to orphans and the poor and the needy. And we still do that. We still do a lot of outreach to help the poor and the needy and orphans, but we've also broadened it out a bit more recently. So with family ministries going on here, family counseling, and just evangelism through English clubs and other types of outreach. We run a DTS, well, until the quarantines started, we were doing DTSs. We are looking to the future, wanting to run a bigger variety of schools here as well. But we've always been more of a ministry focused base than a training base. So for us to think about running other types of schools is actually a bit of a challenge, because most of our team members are more people that get out and do ministry rather than plan and administer a school. That's a bit of a different beast to have to wrap your head around.
Well, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Florine, how about you? Tell us where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm living in Romania. Actually, I started in YWAM in Romania in '99. Also 21 years in YWAM. And I served mostly in Romania. Just when I went in outreaches, I had the opportunity to serve in other cultures. And I was around pioneering, like I was part of a team who we pioneered in Waiva Mediaș, a base. And right now I am pioneering a team in Cluj. And in my heart, I usually am focused on discipleship. This is an important aspect for me, and I love to spend time with people and invest in them. Also one-on-one or groups or yeah, this type of format. But also lately I discovered that I like to build homes like for poor people and be involved in mercy ministry. And this is something new for us, having homes of hope in Romania. But I enjoy to push the wheelbarrow and do any practical things.
That's great.
Yeah. I'm married with Laura, and I have two boys, Sergio and Andrei.
Great to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And so, not meaning to keep anyone in suspense who doesn't know me, my name is Miranda, which I failed to mention, and I'm living in Spain with my husband and two daughters. So it's wonderful to have this representation of YWAM around Europe, just in the four of us here. So our topic today is entrepreneur for the month is entrepreneurship and thinking outside the box. And I don't know what came to mind for you when you first saw that title. I know for me, when I saw the word entrepreneurship, I automatically thought of sort of small business, you know, kind of the kind of entrepreneurial spirit, but more in the kind of business world. Now I've heard each one of you mention the word pioneering, which would maybe be our kind of YWAM terminology for entrepreneurship. I don't know. But I'd love to hear from you. What comes to mind for you when you think of this topic? Just initial first responses, entrepreneurship. What kind of words? How would you describe what that is?
I'd say it's acting upon an idea. It's more like a attitude that a person has of ideas there, let's do something about it and do it quick. Quick can be a bit of a relative idea, but it's not like spending, you know, then, okay, I'm going to do a plan, and after 6 months, we'll have our plan developed, and then we'll go into phase 2 of fundraising, which can take up to 2 years. And it's nothing like that. It's a lot more spontaneous.
Okay.
Ideas come, you work to get that thing happening in a realistic time frame, something fast. Yeah.
So it sounds kind of quite responsive to you.
I think so. Yeah.
I agree with this, but I will frame it a bit differently. I think it's also a person who acts upon an idea, but it's also able that he builds a community around that idea, like a group of people, like he motivates. We can call it a team. And he finds new ways, in a way, of serving that specific need, you know, like present it or, this is something which I will add on that.
Thanks, Farine. Lucy, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about, for me, it's people who are catalysts. They're the people who, you know, who bring the spark to something different. Sometimes I think they can be maverick. You know, they're doing something that nobody's done before, and often they're adventurous. For me, it takes a certain level of adventure to be an entrepreneur, to do something that others may not really do or comfortably do. You're willing to do something that others maybe aren't.
Yeah. I heard Florine say earlier, he used the phrase, do whatever works, which I think captures it really nicely. You know, in YWAM, we talk about doing new things in new ways. And I think that's kind of along the same lines. So I wonder if any of you have got, you could just tell us a little bit about an experience you've had of this sort of thing, doing something new, maybe just tell us what it was. What did you do that was new and why?
So I thought straight away of when we came to this city to start Youth with a Mission here. Wanted to reach out to orphans, but we didn't have any connections with any of the government orphanages. So, but we knew that's what we wanted to do. So we literally just started researching until we found telephone numbers and addresses. And then made phone calls, said, hey, can we come and talk to you? We usually like had something to dangle in front of them to make it more interesting in the way of, oh, look, one of the orphanages, we said, oh, we've got 5 computers that we received in humanitarian aid. Would you like these? And they, of course, they're like, oh, yeah, we'd love to have them. We don't have any computers here. So we turned up there and gave the stuff away and sat around for an hour and chatted with the director and had tea and coffee and whatever. And by the end of our conversation, we'd been charming enough and friendly enough that felt like there was the beginning of a friendship. And then we said, oh, we could come weekly if you'd like. And of course, the answer was like, because we had built a quick rapport, and he was like, oh, wow, yeah, we'd love to have you come. It can be that simple. Mm-hmm. You've got something you want to do and you look at what you have. How can you get there with what you already have? Sometimes you need to do a bit more work to get to that beginning stage, but often it's just looking at what you have.
That's great. Thanks, Andrew. How about you, Florine?
For me, I will use the example of building houses. We just responded on something which the Lord put in our heart to help single mom with 4 kids. It was a bad weather and her house was destroyed. And we just felt that the Lord is leading us to do it without money in YWAM style. And we were 4 boys, 8 girls, no necessarily construction experience. And we just did it. And then I think, this type of experience happens in YWAM. You just follow the Lord and do it. But I will say entrepreneurship is starting when you learn to kind of scale it and do it again and even try to multiply the idea. And, by accident, the guys from Homes of Hope in Mexico, they reach out to us. They wanted to multiply in Europe. I didn't know that. And I said, okay, let's talk about it. We didn't have this planned. And then, this idea was taken further that somebody who was quite instrumental in Homes of Hope Mexico moved to Cluj, and he's part of our team right now. And he's connected with churches who build houses and these kind of things. And then to see people from my church who are entrepreneurs and they have investment, they, put their companies giving money. And I think, for me, it's also this aspect, like you have an idea, you try it, you go with the Lord, but then if you're able to multiply it, to scale it, to create more teams, then or at least this part is attractive to me. To develop. And we are right now in the phase that like tomorrow I will talk in a big company, IT company, who donated already 1 house, and I invite the IT guys to come to join us to build houses. And it's kind of gets a good basis in Romania that we can build with Romanians, not just with the teams who comes outside of Romania.
Yeah, that's great. I'm hearing in both of you, I'm hearing this, there's an identification of a need and there's some kind of opportunity, which could include the sorts of people that God brings into your path to connect with. And then there's the spark that Lucy talked about. So Lucy, what has your experience been of doing new things in new ways or thinking outside the box?
I think I was thinking about this earlier because I'm in a pioneering situation, but I'm fairly immature in my experience as a pioneer on my own kind of back. And we were talking about, I talked to you about this earlier this morning, and I went away and thought about it, and I thought, there's so many different ways that we can pioneer. We can pioneer with projects, we can also pioneer with ideas. And I think for me, I worked when we first met, Miranda, it was working in Cape Town, and I was quite outspoken. And I think sometimes actually when you're outspoken about injustice, that can be part of your idea sowing. Now I'm working here in England, and I take with me the experience of working with the world of HIV and AIDS, and working with women who were working on the streets as sex workers. And I'm here hoping to start a project working with women here in our kind of neighborhood. There's lots of those threads that all kind of tie up, and for me it's being outspoken that has connected me to people who've said, oh, actually I heard what you were saying, and that's something I've got a passion for as well. And so it's this way that sort of God is bringing people together through these shared connections and threads. And I think that is something, it's being willing to not let it go. And when you get this passion to start something, it's being willing to not let it go until you see it kind of come to life. I think I've always been involved in projects where I've worked with others and with, I guess, other seed ideas from other organizations as well. And it's looking to see, okay, what do I know and how do I apply it in my context? So we did some work in Brighton with art ministry and doing an Advent calendars on a beach hut, which, you know, every day was a different beach hut with a different expression of Advent. And here we're in Thanet, and you know, we're looking at what we can do here. We've got beach huts. What is our unique contribution going to be during this time, which would take something of that idea of using spaces to multiply and communicate the gospel. And it might be shop windows during lockdowns, or, you know, we don't know.
Yeah, I love just hearing you reflect there, and the number of times that you mentioned the word idea. And when I was thinking about this topic, I was thinking something that seems crucial to it is having imagination, like having the capacity to imagine a different reality. You know, and biblically or theologically, we talk about that as imagining the kingdom. You know, do we have the ability to envision what the kingdom of God looks like where I am or where you are? So I don't know, what would you say about the role of imagination in kind of doing new things in new ways? And how has imagination been at work for you in your process of pioneering new things?
Lucy.
I think, you know, I remember a friend said to me, you've got so many ideas, you just need to put it down there, you know, get it out on paper. And I do think, you know, we can take a model that somebody else has used and we can imagine that we're supposed to do it the same way as them. But the exciting thing is that we don't. And I'm in this kind of strange paradigm where I'm saying, well, I don't want to do it exactly the same way, but what are the best practices to keep it? Because I'm, you know, I like the word rules, but I have to try and remind myself that I don't have to stick, you know, what are the rules as I imagine them, and the real rules aren't always the same thing. And how do I go about exploring? You know, we've got a Christian bookshop that I go and pray in a prayer house. It's like, okay, God, I just want to get the ground floor space, and I want to turn it into a gallery and a place where people can come and just come in off the street and experience you, and we can do Christian meditation, and I'm really excited about how that moves forward. It's like taking all of these threads and these strands together and saying, okay, why not? I think that's a big question, is the why nots as well, of you know, I think often we feel we've got to fix things and do things the way that we've seen them done before, but why not do them differently? I think, Florin, I was really excited when you were saying about you're wanting to pioneer schools with people who aren't used to working in that way. And I thought, well, how exciting, because maybe you can make schools that are accessible to people who aren't used to studying in that way, you know. And it's quite exciting to think and imagine what that could look like. Really great practical training for people who maybe aren't academics or aren't used to learning in a sort of classroom setting. So I think it's kind of fun. You know, what are the real rules?
So in the Leadership Lounge with Joachim Magnus, he talked about his process for getting ideas. So we'll stay a little bit with this idea of imagination and ideas. And he said for him, you know, if he's going for a run or if he's lying awake at night, those are the times when he gets a new idea or something to do, something to try. So Andrew or Florine, I don't know if you have moments which are your best kind of moments for thinking new thoughts or imagining a different way of doing things.
All right. For me, it's helpful dialogues. I'm a verbal processor. And I kind of have, whenever I have a new idea or just like a seed of an idea, I like to just talk that idea with somebody. And, you know, if some ideas take me 6 months, 1 year, but I also want to see a process, you know, kind of the Lord's hand is in this idea and some sort of development. Of course, you can discuss with people who are not reacting well when they hear first time. And you need to ask yourself why. Maybe you didn't present it well, or maybe it's not necessarily an idea for that time. But usually I don't find that I can imagine myself an idea from beginning to end. I kind of, I need the dialogue, I need talking to people. And that's at least helpful for me. And also when you talk with people who encourage you, then you can have a moment when you feel that you receive faith for that idea. Because sometimes I have imagination and I know it's possible mentally, but sometimes I have an idea or an imagination which I can envision it, which is for me a different level where you can envision. In a way, I find also imagination can work against me, you know, because sometimes I imagine even details like what a person will, you know, like who will be the person who will come and even give money, and that's
all
not
the things that could go wrong.
Yes, yeah, and that's also not helpful because I kind of I understand then I go quicker than I should go, you know, like I go in front of the Lord, if I can use this in English as an expression, you know, like, and you need to stay on the process, like to know yourself, how you are wired. I never can build an idea just by myself. I need the people. And
I love
the
that.
Lord is using that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, just that recognition that team is needed in order to fill out what this idea is going to look like in practice.
It took me a while to accept that, but it's
yeah,
clear from the beginning.
Yeah, we like the idea of being the genius who makes it all happen, but yeah. Any additional thoughts, Andrew, or questions?
I've often noticed that with ideas, because I constantly have ideas of ministry stuff to do and all sorts of stuff, I have more ideas than I would ever realistically use or need to use. And I have to actually guard myself against that, because sometimes I can waste too much time thinking about how to make something happen when if I was getting really honest with myself early on, I'd realize, well, no, that's not really my calling. That's not really the direction I'm meant to be going in. But I think one thing about ideas is give them away as well. Because often other people, you know, they struggle with ideas. But once they hear the right idea, that's when their entrepreneurial spirit will kick in, and they'll take hold of that idea and run with it and make it happen. And I've seen it happen a bunch of times. Got a young guy on our team, 22 years old, comes from a village not far away from here, wanted to start doing something to reach out to the village that he was born in. He was put in an orphanage when he was 8 or 9 years old. But he didn't know what. And I was like, well, just start going there every week. And so he started doing that. But then after a while, he was like, well, I want people to know Jesus, type of thing. And I was like, well, what are you going to do? And he had no ideas. So I kept asking what he was going to do. And then one day I'd been out there a bunch of times with him, and I noticed a bunch of the young people in the village, they're like workout freaks. They love to take pictures of their muscles, type of thing. And I just said to him, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could do like have a sports competition out here with a cross country run and a few other stuff, and a few other type of exercises that you can do as competitions. And I just left it with him. And then like 2 weeks later, I heard somebody else on our team come to me. It's like, oh, this guy's name is Vadim. It's like, oh, Vadim has this idea to do like a sports competition out there in the springtime. And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. Yeah. Now, if I spoke to him, he doesn't even remember that I mentioned it in a conversation.
Yeah.
He just took it on as his own and
great.
making plans for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you just got to find ways to offload these ideas and stuff that you can have, because it can be somebody else's thing to run with.
Yeah, that's great. Just this idea, this notion of generating new creative thoughts, imagining what could be possible. And Florine talked about kind of filling that out by dialoguing with other people, inviting them into the process. Andrew's talking about maybe giving away some of those ideas because there's too many to do yourself. And Lucy mentioned this reality of kind of rules in terms of things that have been tried and tested, and taking what we know has been tried and tested, but then also kind of, breaking the boundaries, breaking out of the box in some ways that bring new opportunities into the context that we care about. So I'm hearing some things about growing ideas, which kind of brings us to the place of doing new things in new ways. I'm hearing some things which help us think through what makes that work. What's the kind of environment that makes it possible for people to do new things? Because as Lucy mentioned a while ago, not everyone is comfortable with change. And change kind of rocks the boat. It causes a bit of disequilibrium. A lot of people are very kind of harmony oriented. It's not comfortable. And so somehow there's this process in which we shake things up a little bit if we're entrepreneurial. I don't know if you've had experience of that. I remember arriving in a new location for us at one point and coming up with an idea I thought was a great idea. And, the response was, well, we tried that, it didn't work, cold water on my idea. So I'm sure that's happened to you guys. How did you respond? How do we work through this kind of rocky phase of convincing others that our brilliant idea is perhaps something they might want to join in with? Lucy, do you have a thought?
I think that for me, the biggest cold water was when I first moved here. I went to the pastor's breakfast, and sort of the most elderly of all the pastors in the town turned and just said, so why do we need YWAM? Do we actually need YWAM here? And I sort of smiled and said, well, we've got 180,000 people here and they're not all Christians yet, so why not?
Yeah.
I think it can be like utterly crushing when you're really sort of pumped and ready. I think one of the main things I think is to remember, if you've got the vision, that is it something that you think you could commit a decade of your life to at the beginning, I think is a really good reminder. Somebody kind of said to me, it takes 5 to 7 years before you see an idea really start to come to birth, and so that was a real help and a reminder for me. And I think when I went to that pastor's breakfast and I said, look, I've made a 10-year commitment to being here, and I could just see this collective sigh of relief around the room. I was not going to be this young person coming in and telling them all the ways why I thought that YWAM was better than what they were doing, and I think that's really it's provided a real blessing for me here amongst the church leaders. And I think that's been really helpful actually. And I think also kind of having a humility in the midst of our kind of passion and our pioneering spirit is really, really helpful.
So building trust and demonstrating commitment.
Yeah. And being okay, I think, I do think I do think that there are certain people who just have the charisma to see more things come to earth, and being okay with that. And being okay if it's, you know, 3 or 4 years down the line, the idea that you had somebody else is carrying forward, and being okay with the fact that maybe our idea is a really good one, and it is a vision, and it may even be from God, but maybe our understanding of the timing isn't necessarily always right, and being okay with that, and it's not a reflection of us. I think that's, for me, that's really been really helpful.
Yeah, that's maybe something to come back to. I know in the article that Runar wrote, he talked about particular gifting, and you talked about that particular charisma. So maybe doing completely new things in completely new ways is not for all of us. I don't know. What do you guys think about this? The cold water experience or the question of charisma?
The cold water experience, it can be good, the cold water experience. Sorry.
Hey there. All good.
I remember one time when I was at the base in Kiev, we wanted to start doing like a weekend training with kids from like a college age orphanage. And it was just do a weekend course on photography or on video editing or on writing, just more creative type of things to show them that the professional world out there was much bigger than what they were being told. You know, you can be a bricklayer, you can be a tiler, you can be a cook. That was sort of their options they were mostly being given. And when we started doing that, YWAM Kiev had just like had an apartment. It had 3 rooms in it. One room was office room. The other room was used, I don't know what they used it for, but one room was like a meeting room. And so we were like, oh, great. We can use the meeting room, bring, 10 kids in at a time for the weekend. We asked if we could use the space. We had our idea. We're going to do it. Oh, no, you can't have those kids in here. Which was a little bit crushing at the time. But we figured out that we would do the first time round anyway. We got permission at the college orphanage to just do it all out there, which in the long run turned out much better because the director of the orphanage and the workers there got to see what we were doing, and it built trust so much quicker. So the turn down of our initial plan actually worked out in our benefit because we found another way of doing it. And later on, when YWAM in Kiev got some more facilities, because we did have that trust, then we were able to more easily take kids out of the orphanage for the weekends and actually bring them into town to continue doing these courses that we were running. So yeah, I don't know. Cold water can hurt a little bit. It's a little unpleasant, but that fresh wake up in the morning can also get your brain going on how else to do it.
Yeah, that's right. You have to rethink it maybe. But also I was thinking as I was listening to you that the cold water experience can sort of cause us to decide, is this idea worth it? Is it something that I want to hold on to? If my idea just gets kind of washed out as soon as the cold water comes, then, maybe I'm not onto the thing that, it's not the thing I thought it was. Maybe there's something else that needs to happen. But
I think a typical entrepreneurial trait is that if somebody tosses the cold water on, then you're probably going to get more determined to make it happen.
Right. Or you just pivot a little bit and carry on. Yeah. Florine,
I think, if in the business world, if an entrepreneur have an idea, he needs to make the investors to believe it in an idea. Like I don't need to make the whole world to think that my idea is great. If you run that everybody which you talk, they will believe and they will just say that's a great idea, nobody had it. I think it's a wrong expectation. But I think if you get a cold water experience from a person which you view that person's perspective matters to you, or you wanted that person to invest in some ways, not necessarily financially, in that idea, I had this experience, and for me was also maybe I didn't present it well. Usually the people who presents, for business investors, like he will do a business plan, he will try to communicate on their language. And sometimes I realize if I communicate the idea, how I receive it and how that idea makes me passionate, doesn't mean that the person will understand it. And I need to learn to translate it on their language. And yeah, I think from the moment when you have an idea and to kind of grow it and to present it well and to have that group of people which you need, even staff and people from other bases to just kind of join the team and come behind that idea, needs a bit of work and needs to learn it, to put it in a language that they will understand. Not necessarily just you are, because in my mind was, you get the mic in a conference and you say it and everybody cries and have an encounter with the Lord and say yes, but that's usually not happening. I think this is something which we need to learn. Like it is the Lord is bringing the idea to us, he's carrying us, and he's the most important investor in the idea. But when it's coming to convince people, we need to learn the techniques, how you present that idea. You have a clear budget, you have phases, you have and depending on the person or depending on the idea, what type of people you need or how much money you need around that idea, then you need to do more work. If it's an outreach somewhere, like one project, one time, then you don't need all these things. But if it's an idea with $10 million, then you need to do a lot more business plan and, all these things that you convince people.
So that takes me back to this thing that you raised before, which is the need for people. Because in that scenario, what I hear is a lot of different giftings. There's the gifting of the person with the idea, maybe with the charisma to invite other people to participate in the idea. But then there's the gifting of, people who can think through the implications, the finances, the actual plan, maybe the person who has the capacity to stand up the front and invite others or invite business people. Maybe that person's not the person who had the original idea. That could even be somebody else. So I don't know what your experience has been of gifts that you don't have, that you need, that you invite others to come and bring their piece. Is the entrepreneurial gift quite rare? Is it something that's just for a few people? How do we generate more of that, or is that even possible? Throwing questions at you there. Who's got a thought?
Well, I'm guessing that it's, I don't think it's just a gift that just some people have. I think it's something you can learn. And I think if you're around other people that have it, you pick it up over time because you just see it in action.
Right.
So I think a big part of it is definitely the environment that you're in. I can see it in my team here. We have a fairly entrepreneurial environment where we're a small team. So it's not the place you come to just join in with something that somebody else is doing. If you want to come down here, you got to have the desire to get something going. And so we've seen people join our team with a desire, but not knowing how to do that. And often it just takes a little bit of extra encouragement to give them that push to try. And then you just sort of hang out with them and help them make their mistakes and
recover.
And recover, yeah, and definitely, and recover. Because usually the mistakes when somebody's starting out are not that big anyway, and they're great learning experiences. But yeah, totally, the environment that you can create for people to be in so that they can try and succeed and fail and succeed and whatever needs to happen is really important. A lot of freedom. Got to have a good amount of freedom in your team and your environment. If you have lots of rules and hoops for people to jump through before they can get started with something, that's going to really slow down the entrepreneurial spirit. Because people that are entrepreneurs, they want to get busy, they want to get active and try and make something happen. So you got to try and help facilitate that.
Yeah. I love that idea of
and
it's essentially it's building a culture, isn't it? Would you say, Andrew?
Yeah, it is. And it's not based around personality or, like, obviously being able to communicate and is important, but you don't have to be like some super charismatic person to be an entrepreneur. One of our most successful guys on the team, he's like such a quiet guy. When he's having his day off, he turns all his telephones and computers off. You can't get in touch with the guy because he needs that to recover and recuperate. But he's been running 4 English clubs and has networked with local churches to have teams go into orphanages. And if you just met him, you wouldn't think he did it. He's an American, had to work really hard as soon as he got here to learn the language so he could go and do it all on his own. And so just because he's so quiet and reserved, he's not the typical person you might think has an entrepreneurial spirit. But he does, because he saw what he wanted to do, saw what the need was, and just went about doing it. So,
initiative taking. Yeah. Florine, do you have thoughts on this?
I think one aspect is, also I had this problem to compare myself with all the YWAMers, who had the great ideas, and like whoever came first in Romania was so hungry and so little thing happened. Whatever idea you bring will find roots and will be very easy and no competition. And you could be around one person comes and influence people, and he will be named, and but right now, if you start something, you can't do it without a team. It's impossible, because all the phases when, like, you dream the idea and to see that you can multiply that idea, I will fail. I will not maybe be able to send my newsletter or communication or improve the idea or get the feedbacks. Like, without the team, it's no way. And I think the new generation of YWAMers, they just need to learn. It's a different world out there. It's not necessarily around one person. You need the whole team, and learn the dynamics of function, like create a culture for your team. And even like with the house build, we are from the beginning look to multiply this. And I was asking somebody who had many years in mission, and I asked, because we had the person who came to our location to kind of take on the role, and the person, the old missionary, said the person is not able, because what you have a team, and with that team you are able to build houses, and the person is alone and he don't have a team. And that's a new factor. Like, we can't compare ourselves with the people who pioneered YWAM. They could take a continent, leave a mark there. Now we need to convince a group of people and learn to be entrepreneur together.
That's great. It sounds like there's still a place for the person who brings the energy of the new initiative, or the new imagining, the new way of seeing what could be possible, and the belief that it could be possible, that we can do this, we can bring this about together. And maybe that's more than one person, but it sounds as though there's still a place for that kind of, the energy of that gifting.
Of course, I don't want to say it's not. Sorry to just jump in here, but like whatever idea you bring now in YWAM, you immediately think, oh, maybe YWAM Norway can get behind that, or YWAM England, or YWAM, and already you need the networking, and you need all the you can't have any more. When it's an idea around your city or next village, of course you can do it by yourself. But when you want to be something which have an impact more than your village next to you, then you need people.
Lucy, what would you add to this?
I was thinking about what Carl wrote in his article about the difference between the visionary and the apostolic. And yeah, this whole idea of you can have an idea, but you do need to see it broadened. And I think there will be people who have ideas and have projects that they're quite happy to do on their own for the rest of their life, but they're not going to be the people who want to transform something that goes beyond themselves and leaves a legacy. And I think that's the really important thing about the team. And even in our pioneers, our pioneering leaders who started and pioneered YWAM into the nations, they may have started alone, but it wasn't long before they were a team, because that's the way that multiplication and legacy happens, is by seeing something grow and other people. I know that I have a heart for working with the most vulnerable women, but if I go out on my own on the streets, either I'll get myself in a position where I put myself in a very dangerous situation, or I will burn out, or I won't have the understanding and the wisdom that I need. And I think that's really, an important lesson to learn is the safety of team. And I think that's something that often, I'm at the moment, I'm on my own. The girl who came here to pioneer with me had to leave for health reasons. And I'm married. My husband has done a DTS. Don't worry. But he's a teacher, and we're kind of trying to work out how we move forward with that. But I can't go out on my own on the streets and go into the neighborhoods, or go up to the women who are on the streets who I think are sex working on my own. If I don't, I would like to survive beyond today. And I think that's something really important to remember, is there is a safety that comes from team. And sometimes we can see that as a restriction and a restraint, and especially when you're like me, it's like super like, I'm gonna go for it, don't hold me back. I think it's remembering that actually, if I want this to be around for a long time, I need to be safe enough to be here in that time, and not be a victim of my own desires to see something start.
It's interesting hearing you talk about constraints. It's making me think about some of the art processing that I've done with people, just using art making as a way to help people process with God. And actually, when you put constraints around creativity, that can provide the impetus for something really completely new that you wouldn't have thought of making before. So even, for example, if you give people a time limit and you say, okay, you've got 3 minutes to do this, the constraint of the time actually kind of somehow energizes the creative process. And I'm wondering if some of the constraints of what's happening in our context, or the constraints of, we're kind of trying to make do with the resources that we've got, and we don't have endless resources, or the constraints even of the particular giftings on our team cause us to have to do new things in new ways. We have to kind of do a workaround. We have to, we're going to find a way to make this work, and it's maybe not going to look the way we thought it would at the beginning, but there's this kind of creative energy that brings about something that is part of this beautiful picture that emerges. So just in the next couple of minutes, any thoughts about constraints? How have you responded to things that maybe feel like a limitation but end up being part of the new thing?
Well, obviously the pandemic has been a restraint.
Yes, I wanted to get to that. Thank you.
I'm hoping it was on everybody's mind as soon as you said restraints. I remember when was it? When did it start? March? Was it last year? March, yeah. April, so.
March,
so when Ukraine first went into lockdown, we had about 5 or 6 weeks of hard lockdown. It was terrible, and we didn't know what to do. or we had a whole bunch of orphanages that we visited weekly. We had a disabled facility, government one that we visited weekly, and they're all closed. Everything, they're still closed now.
Oh, wow.
And so whatever, 70% of our regular weekly ministry just disappeared overnight, and suddenly you got all these missionaries that are feeling really insecure because they're not doing something. It's like, oh, what is everybody going to think if we're not actually doing some sort of ministry? But that actually became the impetus for us to start doing outreach into some poor villages. So even though there were still quarantines going on, we could we went out to some of these villages. Some of our team members come from there, and we just go and talk with poor families, started delivering food, discovered a bunch of poor families because they sort of live on day paychecks and they couldn't work anymore. They didn't have money for food. So we started raising money to get food and delivering food, and ended up turning to delivering food and Bibles. And but that one restraint opened up a whole new avenue of ministry that we're still doing now. And it's actually been really, for the guys that are working on it in our team, it's been really, really satisfying to do it. In the one village, the mayor of the village came to know Jesus through it, because she used to like sitting in the car and driving around to deliver the food with our team members. And on one particular day, one of the guys just told their testimony, and she starts weeping and wants to become a Christian. She's been an atheist her whole life. And, so restraints, as you said, can really push you into a different area that brings results. Yeah.
Beautiful example. Thank you. Yeah. Florine or Lucy, how about you?
Yeah, I will add also constraints are helpful to remind us that we are not just doing something by our own. For me, it's also a reminder that we need to go to God, to pray and to just ask help from Him. And also, it's how you said, for the creative process, then it's time to think maybe it's another way to do it. Like for us, the experience with the pandemic was like we had really a great year in January. Like we had the biggest budget. We had houses lined up which we will build and everything. And when the pandemic came, we were not sure that we'll be able to pay even the rent, if the team will be or not. We'll lose everything. Everything was possible, But for me, that was a moment to kind of reach out to, groups of people, just to talk, just to hear what the business people will say, what ideas they have. Sometimes constraint can help you to know that not everything is in yourself. You need to reach out, you need to talk, you need to find out, you need to, and for me, it was really helpful that. And I was thinking that, having at the beginning of the year, this will be a great year, that will be kind of a confirmation that the Lord is with you. But sometimes, when you go through difficulties, it's even a better confirmation that the Lord is with you, because it's a place for Him to do miracle. I remember we had the DTS in Romania. All the time we were fundraising for schools, for outreach, for lecture phase. And in that school, we didn't do any fundraising. The students had money, but nobody stayed in mission. That was the weird fact. And, we had the school, and we even didn't have heating system, like to have, we were having blankets in the classroom, and 90% stayed in mission. Even was very hard. I thought everybody will leave in the first month. And, sometimes constraints helps you. And we were joking as staff, like said, even if we have all the money, we just need to create some hardship for the students, because otherwise they will have the wrong picture about mission. I think it's, for me, life will be boring without constraints.
I'll send some of mine your way. Lucy, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree. And this year has been really challenging. I mean, like personally for me, I mean, I was supposed to get married in April, and we didn't get married till August, and it was very different to what we expected. So that was another thing. But you know, we often talk about the new technology and how the new technology is going to enable us to do ministry, and we think it's going to be in one way, and then you know, we've had this year where, I mean, I wouldn't have met you guys if it hadn't been for this. And,
Yeah.
you know, just that I helped to coordinate the forum of leaders within YWAM England, and during the first lockdown we met every other week, and we would put people into a breakout room just with whoever, you know, and at the end we got some feedback, and some of the guys said to us, you know, we met people that we never would have met because you put us in a breakout room and we couldn't choose. Because even when you're in a big room and you say go into a breakout room with these people, there's still some personal preferences that play into that. And you know, all that we've discovered about our, you know, how we can connect with each other this year's been phenomenal. And I do think that's because we've had restrictions and constraints. I think one thing that really struck me, and I've had to keep remembering that, is a friend said to me, you know, Lucy, we can still do evangelism. You know, you can actually still go out to the shop and you can still talk to somebody in the queue. You can still go up, you can still talk to people on the street with the 2-meter distance. I mean, English people are really happy with that, you know, they're nice personal boundaries, and you know, we can still relate to people. And I normally I'm the chair of Planet Church's Open Christmas. We normally do like a 4-day event over Christmas for people who've got nowhere or no one to be with at Christmas. And this year we did it in hampers, and we gave out 100 hampers to over 200 people, and it was very different people who we saw, which was also very interesting. It was, you know, it's a different kind of people, and seeing them come and get their Christmas hamper and cry, you know, with their presents wrapped for the children, and we thought about the specifics of each person, and it pushed us, you know, because our team of normally 30 volunteers was the 6 of us in the bubble of our core team to make this happen. And I think, you know, it has been a real stretching time, but it's made us realize, you know, we've got a lot that we can give even when we've got nothing to give, you know. And I think YWAMers are perfect for this kind of thing, because we are so used to doing a lot with not much. And you know, I think probably we are more resilient than I think we realized. And I think that's been really exciting.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good word for us as we come to the end of our time. We've been chatting just about for an hour, so thank you guys for sharing your thoughts about entrepreneurship and thinking outside the box. I was thinking, just as I was listening to Lucy talking then, that in adult learning, adult education, they talk about the importance of disequilibrium for people to learn new things, like shaking things up a bit, getting people out of the rut that they're in, out of the comfortable place. And if this year has been anything, it's been shaking us up a bit and getting us out of our comfortable places. So I wonder if we could join together in just blessing one another, and even YWAM around Europe, with the capacity to respond to this challenging season, empowered by the Holy Spirit to imagine different possibilities, different ways of being kingdom people in the places where we live. The ability to think outside the box, and that we would be giving one another the freedom to do that, and maybe to fail, like Andrew was saying, but to recover and to keep going. So yeah, I speak that out as a blessing. I'm sure you will join me in that, and a special thank you to the 3 of you for being here, and those of you who joined the call. And those who will watch this as a recording, thank you very much. May there be many new initiatives that bubble up in the next months.
For sure.
Thanks, everybody.
Could I pray quickly?
You may. If that was not prayerful enough, Lucy, you may pray.
No, I want to bless Florin and his team with the creativity with these new education ideas in schools and training. And Father, I'm really excited for what that could look like. Father, would you help them to take what they know they have to achieve, and I just want to proclaim a blessing of creativity over the learning style, and would you empower their team to have the skills they need to multiply within the constraints of and the needs of our university. Would you bless them with that in Jesus' name? And I want to pray for Andrew and his team, that actually when these orphanages open up, I want to pray for the leaders of the local government to recognize how much they've missed of their team. And I want to pray for their area as well. I don't know how many more children will need homes because of this COVID crisis. And I want to pray for authority greater than they've ever known or imagined to speak to the homes of the people in the Ukraine, that they could corporately be part of becoming family to many who need it. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you. To pray.
That's great. Thank you.
That's brilliant.
Thanks so much, you guys. We'll see you at the next drop-in discussion.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.